Hey, Diana, did you know that marketing to your client base is simple?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists, and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister Podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
And welcome to the Successful Barrister Podcast, the podcast for lawyers about marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I am your host, Marc Whitehead, alongside my co-host, my COO, my right hand, Diana Berry. Hey, Diana, what's up?
Not much. How are you, Mark?
I'm good. So as we sit here, this is the day after Easter as we're recording this particular episode of the podcast. How was your Easter?
It was phenomenal. How was yours?
Excellent. My Louisiana-born Cajun wife wanted me to cook her up some crawfish, so I cooked up 65 pounds of crawfish this weekend.
That's
Had a crawfish
intense.
boil, had a whole passel of people over to my lake house. It was quite fun.
Did you eat all 65? I mean, did y'all eat all 65?
I think we got through about 2/3 of it.
Okay.
And then the other third, we had a big shelling party and we shelled it and
Perfect.
put it in the freezer. I'm going to make some etouffee.
That's great.
My wife is just getting her...
My mouth's watering. It's a little close to lunch as we record this, too.
I know. My Louisiana-born wife is getting her Cajun jiggy on right now. So
That's exciting. I wonder if Tina, if I'm in her good graces, and she'll include me in the list for some etouffee next time.
Okay, well, that just depends.
Okay.
Okay. So what are we talking about today?
Marketing, your favorite topic.
My favorite topic. All right, so this is 2 marketing episodes in a row.
Well, I think that makes sense. So last week's episode was about attorney marketing, and one of the segments or the chapters of your marketing plan. And today we're talking about
client referral marketing. So let me back up a little. So last week we talked about referral marketing, specifically referral marketing to other attorneys. In other words, how to tap into other attorneys' herds to get cases, to get clients. This week, we're going to take it a little bit more in depth into what we at Marc Whitehead Associates do to market to our own client base. Now, again, I will give a slight caveat. The vast majority of the people in our client base are simply that clients or potential clients who we may not have accepted, or they may not have come on, or the timing may not have been right, but there's still people who've contacted us. So we have a relationship with these people already, which invokes a special set of more liberal bar rules in terms of advertising. There's a whole lot of things you can do to your own client base in terms of marketing to them that you couldn't necessarily do to the public in general. So it's the protected class that you have an advantage with. But I also include friends and family in that list as well. So never overlook the fact that some person that you went to high school with 30, 40 years ago might end up being your client one day, or at least might be in a good referrals list. So I put them in that list as well. But generally speaking, this list is primarily targeted to clients or those who have at least expressed interest and contacted your firm in the past, some way, form, or fashion. So that's what we're going to talk about today, how to maximize that group. And I will tell you that I know plenty of lawyers who do not do any marketing other than this one particular tactic. They simply market to their own client base, and they generate a steady referral of steady flow of business from that particular channel. Now, I will say that I would think that's a bit dangerous, or at least a little bit, you can't be in significant growth mode if that's your only channel. But I do think it's one of our top 3 channels.
Yep. No, I think that's can put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. So we've talked about what we call the flywheel effect, which I think is a Jim Collins term, and I'm sure Jim Collins stole it from somebody else, but every business has a flywheel.
Yep.
And in the business of law, our flywheel generally runs something like this. Since we are a service business, the first step in the flywheel is to generate interest from the public, whomever that may be. The second step of the flywheel is then to convert those people that have raised their hands and have shown some interest into becoming paying clients. The third step in the flywheel, is to actually perform the work that you've been hired to do and do a good job of it. You got to do a good job and got to relay to the client that you did a good job. It's not enough to do a good job. They need to understand the good job that you did. Because understand, clients don't have a reference point. Mm-hmm. They have no idea if you're doing a great job for them or not. So don't assume that they know that. But then the next step of the flywheel is to then keep in regular contact with those clients and those past clients and recycle them and bring them back up to the top of the flywheel so they can become either clients in the future for a second time, or they can become referral sources. In other words, establish those clients as part of your regular flywheel. And if that flywheel just keeps getting fed at the top of the flywheel, over time, over the 33 years that I've been doing it, it starts to go faster and faster and get bigger and bigger until the point that you get, more and more and more and more and more referrals from your client base.
And so this is where you start, is your flywheel on client marketing. And I guess today we're going to talk about how you or we at MWA do some of our strategies for client marketing.
Yes. But I want to talk a couple of points in the flywheel that are very important. So understand the flywheel concept. It only works if all parts of the flywheel are working. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you have to have a good marketing system. You have to have a good intake system, which I think is going to be one of our future episodes on how we do intake. You have to do outstanding customer service. Your clients are not going to refer to you. They're not going to come back to you if you did what they perceive to be mediocre work. Okay. You've got to do outstanding work, but you also have to explain to them you're doing outstanding work. But then you have to keep in connection with them. You have to keep in contact with them over the lifetime of this relationship. And this relationship with your clients can last 30, 40 years. I remember one of the very, very first clients that I ever represented. This was 30-something years ago, and this woman was a Holocaust survivor. And she told me stories about her being in a Nazi concentration camp. She was a very old woman at this point, but I distinctly remember it. But, we just clicked, and she showed me the tattoo on her wrist where they had tattooed her to mark her. She was just a child when this happened, and somehow she managed to survive it. But she actually enjoyed relating the story to me, and I kind of enjoyed listening to her. And we just developed this little bond for about 10 years. She was just a really, really good referral source for me. Just sent me friends, family. She just knew everybody. Sadly, she, passed away about 10 years into the relationship. It's another reason you have to keep making this flywheel go, because you are going to lose some of your people. Some of your clients are going to die. They're going to move away. They'll get older to the point where they don't really have a lot of contact and don't really, their ability to be a referral source for you sort of diminishes over time as they get older. So this is why you're always feeding that flywheel. You're always trying to feed the top of the funnel of the flywheel, but you always want to remember the lifetime value of your client, because it's not just the representation and the value that you get from it monetarily the first time you represent them. It's what does the lifetime value of this client look like, which can be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times or more than that initial fee that you may get from this particular client, if you do it right. So that's sort of the philosophy that I look at. I will say it's harder for us in what we do as a disability practice, because most of our clients that we represent are older, and a lot of them are not in great health. So they tend not to get out as much. But I will tell you that the ones that do refer to us, are quite vigorous about it. So when you find those golden nuggets, You need to nurture those relationships. So that's what we're going to talk about today, a little bit how we do that at Marc Whitehead Associates.
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
All right, Diana, so let's talk about the very first basics of blocking and tackling in client marketing, which is you've got to have a good list. So you got to have a list of all your people's names, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses.
Birthdays.
Oh, forgot about that one. Birthdays. And that's one of the great things that I've done, and I just started from day one, is I've always kept a good database. So what is the technology that we use to actually make all these magic fairy things happen?
So today we currently use Litify at the firm for our clients,
which is
storage.
Salesforce based.
It is a Salesforce managed app. It is also our case management software. It's very powerful, and so we use it to store all of our client information, everything from obviously all the things you mentioned, birthdays, addresses, email addresses, ways we contact them. So that also means, though, inherently that any of our potential clients that we maybe couldn't help because that's just not our strike zone, they also end up in our database, which is, I think, a great point that you made earlier.
Right. So I believe we have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20,000 names currently in our database, and it grows every year. And, one way to segment that is what you just mentioned, which is people who actually hired us or that we accepted as clients. Those are our client database. But then we have the other database, which is people that contacted us that ended up not becoming our clients for whatever reason. Either they didn't fit our criteria, or they just had questions, or we referred them out to other lawyers, or we just rejected them for whatever reason, or for that very small minority of people who we actually wanted, but they didn't want us for some reason. I can't imagine why that would ever happen. But that group as well, that's a group of people that you want to maintain a list of for a lot of reasons, not to mention conflict checks and all that fun stuff, but you want to market to that group as well. But you may want to market to that group slightly differently than you do your own client base.
And there's a lot of technology out there that'll help you keep up with each of your distribution lists.
Right.
In our history, just since I've been here, we've used HubSpot, which is also very powerful. I'd also say very expensive, but very powerful. We've used Emma. And so distribution lists don't just keep up with your information, keep up with your information in categories.
Right. So you want to be able to, so for example, if I want to send a quick email out to, say, all of my clients that are veterans, because maybe there's a veterans issue that has popped up that would be of interest or relevance to them, I want to be able to know that data. So we have that data in Litify, and then that data gets transferred over to HubSpot, which is now how we email. Emma was our former email program, but we switched over to HubSpot because it has more robust capabilities. And you're right, it is a little expensive, but if you use it well and use it aggressively, I think it's probably worth it. But say, for example, I want to send something just out to veterans, okay, which happens. Camp Lejeune stuff came up. We wanted to send stuff out just to veterans, and we had to do it quickly. Mm-hmm. Say we want to segment our list by people who may have had been on a CPAP machine, which we wanted to do because the CPAP litigation occurred. We were able, to somewhat segment our data and go after those people, although that's a little bit tougher because now you're getting into the medical records and things, but it is possible to do. But you want to be able to as the data analyst would call it, you want to be able to use the crosstabs. You want to be able to slice and dice your data if you want to target something specifically. But more to the broader purpose is that you want to be able to communicate with this entire group effectively and relatively cheaply on a regular basis. You never want to lose contact with your herd. Now, one of the things that we do, I think one of the basic blocking and tackling things that we do is that we send out various email newsletters. How often do we send them out? We send our producers tell me that we send them out twice a month. I do think that we have talked about doing that even more and maybe even segmenting our list and sending out different communication to actual clients and former clients versus what I'm going to call the potential clients, or that list of people who communicated to us that ended up not becoming our clients, because that's a different message. Mm-hmm. It really is. But email is the low-hanging fruit because it's quick, it's cheap, and most people don't mind giving up their email addresses, especially if they're contacting you. So we have a pretty good list.
I do think it's worth mentioning, obviously, with the technology, any of the basics. I think even with Emma, you get certain statistics that you can actually track. So it's a lot easier. I wouldn't say an ROI, but you get more statistics and visibility than you would say, for example, a print newsletter, which is harder to track who even got it and who's opening it. I think there's also the benefit of, so for example, open rates, click-through rates, those types of things are very easy to track in any newsletter software that you have today.
So we strive for an open rate of about 20% on our e-newsletters. And I think we generally can get that. I do know that if you really focus on, the headline, that can really affect your open rate.
And I also think, obviously, A/B testing it's just easier to do and get real statistics on your newsletters. You can vary the headline, as you said, or the subject line, and to see how you're doing. But essentially, I think also with this, as well as the next tool that I assume you're going to mention, which is our mailed newsletters. Before we get into that, I just want to make it clear the content of these newsletters are substantially different than from our prior episode where we talked about, the successful barrister, and we were a little bit tongue-in-cheek or a lot tongue-in-cheek, and, where we talked about referral fees. The content for our client marketing varies substantially.
Yes. Okay. So you that's a whole different audience. And you have to be very respectful. You have to be very professional. You do need to be informative. You need to try to spark their interest. Again, a 20% open rate is really good. That means 80% of the people are ignoring what you're sending. So you have to understand that it becomes a numbers game. But it is the low-hanging fruit, and it's easy to measure, and it's easy to be very flexible. If you have last-minute things that come up, you can get an email news blast out just within a day. It can be very topical. You can also embed video in it. You can do lots of things to make it flexible. The problem is what it is that people get flooded with email, which is why you only have a 20% open rate. Mm-hmm. And you have to accept its limitations, which leads to our next tactic that we use, our next tool, which is a mail newsletter. Now, mail newsletters are not cheap. They take time and money to produce, time and money to mail. But these days, people are not getting as much junk mail as they did 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago.
That's correct, yeah.
So a mail newsletter actually has a lot more value today than it ever has, in my opinion. And you can track a mail newsletter. So we use a call tracking number on our newsletter. So we know if somebody sees the newsletter and calls us from that newsletter, we know they came from the newsletter because it has a call tracking number on it. You can also put a call tracking URL on it. So instead of your main website, you could put a specific landing page for them to land on, and you could track that as well.
I think we also use QR codes on some
You
of
can
our...
use QR codes, absolutely. So there's lots of ways that you can do it, but it's not cheap. So the way we have chosen to do it is that we only mail to our past clients, past and current clients. So in other words, you have to have been an actual client of ours. And that list is much smaller. What is the number on that list? About 13,000. Okay, so it's about 13,000 that we mail out. And the average cost per newsletter is about 15,000. So we do this 4 times a year. So we mail at 15,000 a click to our list. Now the other thing we do is at the end of the year we send a magnet calendar, and this is actually, a really effective thing. It's simply a shrink wrap postcard that has a magnet calendar, an annual magnet calendar. We send those out roughly the first week of January. And people stick them on their refrigerators, and they stick around forever. I've had people call me for magnet calendars that were 2 and 3 years out of date because nobody ever takes them off the refrigerator.
When I had a refrigerator, I had an office. I had all of them.
So that is another mailing, an actual mailing that we send to clients. Now, the trick with stuff that you actually mail is that you need to use a mail house that will scrub your database, because for every mailing that we do, a certain percentage, I'm going to say probably 10% or so, come back because people move.
Yep.
People move. People are always moving. And so that's one of the downsides to the mailing, is that probably about 10% or sometimes even more than that are going to come back as bad addresses. And that's part of the job of the mail house, is to try to find the good addresses, the forwarding addresses. This is not something you want to be doing yourself. And they charge a fee for that, but it's worth it to try to keep your mailing list clean. That's another reason you want to mail frequently, is if you only mailed once a year, well then probably at least a quarter of your addresses will be bad, because now you have more and more time where people have been moving and you're not able to update the addresses. So that becomes problematic. But it's very, very effective. It's one of the most effective ways to actually stay in front of your client base. We'll talk about in the third segment, we'll talk a little bit about the content and what you actually want to put in these things. What's the next topic we have? We have the next tool. Hey, here we go.
Our newest one.
Our newest one. Sorry, I didn't have my glasses on and I couldn't read my own damn notes.
It's a little small for you. I agree.
We're gonna go to 20-point type on the notes, okay?
Virtual town halls.
The virtual town halls. Some people call them webinars. But we've actually now started doing these at least once a month, sometimes more than that. And the great thing is I don't have to do them. My lawyers do them. And we have all sorts of topics. We have topics about SSD, life after SSD, disability insurance, veterans disability stuff.
And just a general one, I think, is
we
very
do
popular
general
one as well.
ones. They can sometimes be current events. We're probably going to be doing one shortly, about the effects of DOGE on the Social Security Administration and the VA and how it's slowing things down. You can take all sorts of angles and topics. But generally they do about a 25-minute PowerPoint presentation, and then they do about 25 minutes of Q&A. And we just pump this out. We pump it out on our printed newsletters. We pump it out on our email newsletters. We do individual email blasts. We pump it out on our social media.
Yep, Facebook and LinkedIn.
We do all of that. And you get this audience, and usually we'll have maybe a couple hundred people sign up. I'm getting a weird look. I think a potential upwards of a couple of hundred.
We've had from 25 to 200.
Right, 25 to 200, depending on the topic. And what you'll see is probably about half of them actually show up.
Mm-hmm.
of the ones that signed up, and that's okay, because then you take the ones who signed up but didn't show up, and you send them a recording so they can watch it later. I do this all the time. I mean, I sign up for webinars all the time that are free that I know for a fact I can't attend it because I've got something scheduled on top of it. But I know that since I signed up, they'll send me the link later for the recording, and I'll listen to it on the car or whatever.
But you also become part. It's that whole first-party data movement to really owning information, and
Right.
instead of having,
Because you're adding to your list. Now, a lot of these people come from your client base that are already on your list. But a lot of the people that sign up are newbies. And so now you're collecting.
and now you can reach out to them ethically
Right.
under the bar rules. You can reach out to these people who signed up and didn't still make it.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
see
a
whether
win-win.
there's anything you help them with, or just if nothing else, get them on your mailing list and keep drip, 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 drip. So I love the virtual town halls. Some of the topics,
Yeah, we've also done some on some mass torts.
yes,
Yeah.
we did mass torts. Anyway, I really like the concept, and I think we need to expand it. I think you need to do one.
Oh, Mark,
What are
let's
you?
not
Good?
get-
What's your topic going to be?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. I'm a great. Well, I'm not even great at podcasting. Let me.
I'm going to have you. I'm going to have you do a town hall on the virtues of being a high C.
Oh, well, that, or maybe we can do another elder law one or something. So, I do think that it's important that we read Power of Moments with Atticus a couple of years ago. Was that Atticus that we read it?
Yes.
Yep. And I think that was where we got a lot of our current philosophy. So highly recommend that book. I doubt we'll do a podcast on it. It's a little too soft for Mark, but I think that's where we get our current philosophy from. Our client marketing is the Power of Moments book. So highly recommend that as a tool. Just creating different things like sending them happy birthday messages. I will give one little
I was wondering
caveat.
where you were going with this, but okay, now I get it. So, how are we creating moments with our clients?
And in case anybody ever wondered whether we script this, it's clearly obvious that we do not, because Mark was clueless there. But yes, you want to create moments, whatever you do, however you do it, because this is, not the cheapest way. The things that you've mentioned, it requires either a significant amount of cash to do the mailed newsletters, or a team. If you're a one-man band, you can't outsource your virtual town halls as you have done. Take someone to record it and produce it and put it live and all of the things. So one of the things that whatever you do is create a moment with your client base, whether you have 20 or 20,000 as we do. Send a happy birthday message. I will issue the caveat, though, that when I started meeting with our Litify rep, you just want to make sure you have a deceased checkbox, because you just want to make sure that you're not emailing the spouse on a happy birthday message or something when a client has passed. And so I just, that's just one of those things. I just cringed and stayed away from happy birthday messages for so long because it terrified me.
So this happens to me on Facebook. So every morning, as I'm sitting having my coffee, I turn on Facebook because I'm still an old curmudgeon and I still do Facebook. And I immediately go to the birthdays page and I start clicking happy birthday to everybody that has a birthday. And invariably, you'll run across people like, oh, that person's dead.
Yep.
And so just out of morbid curiosity, I will go onto their page
No.
and start looking at all the people
okay.
wishing this person happy birthday. And like, they're clueless. They like, this guy died 5 years ago.
Yeah, it gets awkward for everybody. So when you just maybe basics of your database, add a deceased column in your Excel spreadsheet if that's where you're starting.
So what you can do, like I have done this especially for people that I really liked or I was close with, I will go back and wish them on Facebook a happy heavenly birthday.
Oh, that's a nice way to.
Because I think
remember.
sometimes their relatives are still watching that stuff. So
Yeah, somebody's maintaining that page.
somebody's maintaining that page. So happy heavenly birthday is perfectly acceptable thing to do. So
Yep. And so in our next segment, I think we're going to talk about content and how you're going to up our game for future client marketing.
I'm Marc Whitehead, a lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks so much for tuning into the Successful Barrister podcast.
we have a blast creating it.
And I hope you find it helpful. If our chats have sparked your interest, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me an email at mark@markwhitehead.com. That's Mark spelled with a C. And join the Successful Barrister newsletter. Even better, let's hop on a call. I'd love to chat about how we can collaborate, share ideas, or just catch up?
All right, Diane. So in the final segment, I want to talk about client marketing ideas that, quite frankly, that we don't do, that we're toying with, or we're thinking about, or at least we should be doing better. This is more of a brainstorming session. And I wanted to get back to the client moments, because people remember moments. If you can create moments in people's mind,
Connection. People are
you
always
create
looking for connection.
That creates
that's
a
what you're trying-
connection, and you
Exactly.
want to make that connection. You want to make it memorable. Just like, the connection I made with my client who was in a concentration camp when she just literally rolled down her sleeve and showed me her tattoo. That was like, I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
She made a connection. I just will literally burned in my brain. I will never, ever forget that
As
day.
it should be. Yeah.
So you want to try to create these moments. And how can you create these moments? So we mentioned birthdays to the extent that, you can keep in touch with your people through birthdays. Even, we do have the issue when they pass. Okay, I get that's a problem. And I don't think it's something that we have done sporadically, and we just have never made it a habit of it the way I think we should have. I know lots of lawyers, particularly PI lawyers, who do a great job of always staying on top of their clients' birthdays. Because a lot of people, especially when you get older, nobody acknowledges your birthday anymore. I mean, it's kind of like, the kids get the parties. It's, the 40-year-old adult doesn't. It's just another day. So just an acknowledgement, and along with that, anniversary days. And when I mean anniversary, representation anniversary. So the idea came to my mind that, hey, we win people's claims on a specific date. We have a hearing on May the 1st and we win their case. Why don't we peg that as our anniversary date for the client? And so giving them a call 1 year later. Hey, it's been a year since we won your case. Just checking in. How you doing?
Yeah. But,
Anything we can help with?
and I think that,
Just those periodic check-ins.
I think unsurprisingly, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on the birthday thing, because I think that a lot of anyone with a marketing database out there nowadays has automated that market. I can't tell you. Starbucks remembers my birthday.
Yeah, I know
And,
it's a little bit cheapened now, but
and I think taking your strategy from attorney marketing and how you send gifts at odd holidays, remember you mentioning that, kind of like the St. Patty's Day and all that. What we've heard that other attorneys do is mimic that type of strategy and have their own personal, like you said, anniversaries. So, for example, a lot of PI clients will have surgeries, unfortunately. And so if a law firm knows that a client is going to have a surgery, then they'll send a reminder to send them maybe a blanket. And I think that because after you've had surgery, you're usually cold, or you're in the hospital where it's cold or something similar. And so they'll send a blanket with the firm logo, just thinking about you. And so there are always moments during your representation where you can create an opportunity to connect with your client. With a special, unique gift, a branded gift, usually.
what we do currently, we send wow packages. So when a client signs up with us, they get a wow package from us. Now, I've seen various levels of wow packages. Again, it depends on the size of your practice and the type of clients that you're fishing for. Our wow packages tend to be more material oriented, like here's our book, here's our client handbook. Maybe here's some branded items that we send them.
Just some very small swag. Very small swag. Yeah.
I've seen some people that go just way overboard on the wow packages and spend like a ton of money to really send some glitzy wow packages. Now, again, in our world where our average fees are relatively low, we can't really, that's not economically feasible for us. If you're a high-end PI firm, then, you could probably do all kinds of stuff to really wow that client.
Or we have seen some very cool things from our Atticusins who have a more niche, high-end clientele in their estate planning. They'll do a box, and so there's I don't think we have any vendors that we would mention or recommend to you guys. But if you need anyone, I'm sure we could find you one if you want to email Mark. But they'll do a box at signing for when they do a high-end estate plan with the firm Yeti cup or something, as well as some coffee mugs or something. I mean, it's a nice presentation with maybe the estate plan and the notebooks. And so it just gives them something very tangible to take away with them.
So one of the ideas that we thought about the WOW package comes at the beginning of the representation. We thought of putting together a win package for at the end of the case, after we've won their case, when they're feeling really good about us and they love us, and we just want to reinforce that great feeling. Now, we do not currently do that, I will say. We've been discussing it. We've looked at various vendors because to some extent, with our volume, we need to automate this as much as we can. But sending out things that would be memorable, like a branded umbrella. Hey, we got you covered, or, obviously there's this tried and true shirts that have your logo on it. There's all sorts of things.
The insulated tumbler, I think.
The tumblers.
Yep.
You want stuff that will stick around. You don't want consumables. But we've talked about doing that. We haven't implemented that yet, but it is a great idea. It kind of goes along with those anniversary calls because you're trying to hit them at particular moments into the future so they don't forget you. Here's one that we've never done that we struggled with this because of the spread out nature of our client base, but are holding client appreciation events. I know a lot of lawyers who do this. They will throw events and invite their client base. We have a problem with this because, number one, we have such a huge list. I mean, what am I going to do? Go rent Toyota Center and it's 15,000 seats? Because you have this whole problem about who's going to show up and who's not, and how do you RSVP, and it becomes an endeavor. But if you can do them in a smaller setting, maybe, if you have a smaller client base, maybe you invite, a dozen at a time or 20 or 30 at a time or something to a smaller event. That might work. Here's the ideal I have come up with, and we've never implemented it, but I've just thought about it. In Houston, we have a big open air amphitheater that puts on free concerts. It's called the Miller Outdoor Theater.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought about checking it. I think they do sponsorships, and maybe just picking a night and doing a sponsorship at the free concert, and then inviting my 20,000 client base to the free concert that I'm sponsoring. Just say, hey, we're sponsoring it. Come hang out with us. And that would eliminate the need to worry about seating, RSVPing. It's just an invitation, because that's really all you're trying to do, is you're trying to invite them to something so they can, so you'll be memorable. Most of them are not going to show up. But you would be there. You would probably be in some place of prominence. At least people could come by and see you. But I thought about that as a solution to the problem that we have with how would you invite 20,000 people to an event.
Yeah, that would be a very cool event. I think your part, especially because, as you said, we are a national practice. And so how do you do stuff for your local clients?
Another thing we do is we do a couple of scholarships, and they're competitive scholarships, but they're geared towards people who are disabled, who are veterans, and their children and or grandchildren. So we promote those, actually right now is about the time of the year in the spring, when kids are starting to graduate high school, is when we start promoting the scholarship program that we do. And we promote that into our client base. So in inviting our clients and children, grandchildren, whomever, they can apply for these things. That's something that we do that I think we get some traction in the community with. I mean, anytime we push that, especially on social media, we get tons and tons of positive commentary on it. That's another way to create a moment with a client. What else you got? How else can we create some moments?
Well, I wanted to go back and just talk about basics of content on some of these things, because I do think that can be overwhelming at first. Some of these, go back to our tagline, how do you get out of your prison? Some of these attorneys that might be listening are like, I can barely keep up with my docket marking. You want me to now start creating content for these things? And some things that we've done in the past that have either worked with varying degrees of success. recipes. I think that Marc rolled his eyes at
I
you
know.
guys, and it was on
just
film.
Don't like that one.
And I think yes, I agree with you. It's not. It tends to be controversial because you don't want filler content. But at the same time, I feel like if you can create a connection, our producer was reminding us that our last recipe was a couple of years ago, because Marc rolls his eyes when we suggest anything like that now. But it was Melanie's leftover turkey pot pie from Thanksgiving. So again, we brought it back to what about the firm, right? We made it very personal about our firm, and then we made it topical. So it's like, okay, well, this isn't just some random, recipe in the spring newsletter. It was, really important for them. I'd always suggested that, Tina's Cajun recipes would be great, because what you're wanting to do, I think, with these newsletters is to make sure that people remember that there are people behind your law firm. You're not just this, big national, you're not one of 20,000, people that are receiving this information. It's very personal to you. And so you do that by creating connection and making people real. So we've also mentioned our interns before. We used to have consistent interns, like that would be with us for 3 or 4 years sometimes. And when they graduate from high school, we would mention that this person was graduating, going on to, going to college, where they would be going, and, the work that they had done here at the firm.
So I'm going to take a different tack on this. I think you need to be somewhat controversial if you want to create interest, buzz, and a community that binds around a concept or an idea. And that's why I roll my eyes at recipes, because they're just not there. As opposed to, right now, we are going through in the Texas legislature a tort reform, extravaganza where certain tort reformers are trying to come in and take away our clients' rights to the legal system. To me, that is a more relevant topic that will create more interest and more buzz if we talk about those types of things in our content. Hey, and get people to rally around it. I mean, literally, Texas Trial Lawyer Association got some insane number of not our clients, but clients generally of lawyers or organization, to come and testify before the legislature, and they were all pissed off about it. And they've had a significant impact in blunting, if not totally terminating that bad legislation that's coming up. Same thing, we have issues around DOJ, cuts to the administrative staff in the Social Security Administration or the VA, which are going to really drastically increase our processing time for claims, which is really going to affect our clients. To me, these are the type of topics that I would like to discuss with my clients and get them ginned up, get them fired up, and to, number one, create that grassroots movement. But another thing is to become the thought leader amongst your herd of people. Like, I want to become the leader of the group. I want them to pay attention. When Marc says something, it's important. So my tack on this is I would really like to up our content game to be more topical, to be talking about the issues that affect our clients' lives, both in a positive way, but frequently, unfortunately these days, in a negative way. And I think that is how you create those connections with these people. Yes, it's great. I'll admit it, when my first child was born, I put my kid's baby picture on the cover of the newsletter, and I got all kind of response over that. They loved it. Our clients loved it. I made this whole story about she was going to be my next associate. She's going to be a lawyer. I get it. There is a place for those types of stories.
The human interest stories.
The human interest stories. But when you really want to build sort of a cohesive movement, it's what is it about what's affecting their lives, and what can we do to fix it? That's the angle I think you take. And it's not a recipe.
And as our producer pointed out, you could also do both. I wouldn't let the lack of content or the, where do I get this information, to stop anyone from creating some of these or utilizing some of these strategies in your own practice.
So at a base level, a large percentage of your people are just going to say, hey, Marc sent me a newsletter, and they throw it away and they don't read it. And that's okay. As long as they acknowledge in their brain that Marc sent them a newsletter and Marc thinks about them and Marc cares about them. To that group of people, it's okay. They didn't read your newsletter. But then there's the other half of the people who are going to read your newsletter. And you want to be able to figure out how to tap into some sort of emotion, something to get them to buy in and become part of your raving herd. You want to become their thought leader. And I think that's really where you can have exponential growth in terms of your client marketing program. So it's like, so that's what I'm saying is like, I want to take us to the next level. Okay. It's great. We have this content that we've been doing, but I want to take us to the next level. I want to take it to the thought leader level. That's where I want to go with it.
Well, that's exciting, Marc.
I know, and I have no idea how to do this.
Well, I think you just mentioned it all, and we look forward to hearing more about your client marketing strategies.
I would love to hear everybody's comments about this. Now, I'm specifically, as we sit here today, the stuff that's going on in the Texas legislature ought to be pissing everybody off. So that's one way to get your clients motivated. When the government starts screwing with your rights.
And all the things you mentioned for our national listeners are, Doge affected and obviously on a national level. So look forward to your comments.
I know this will be an interesting journey. I will report back on this because I really don't have any idea where this is going to go. But this is my ideal right now, and this is what I'm all fired up about. So with that, I've been told that we are just flat out of time, and I still have so much more to say. But it's for the next episode. We'll say it for the next episode.
Absolutely.
For the next episode. So with that, we want to thank everybody for listening to the Successful Barrister Podcast, where legal legends are made. I'm Marc.
And I'm Diana.
And together we are the dynamic duo of law. So remember to rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, tell your friends, your family, tell your dog, tell somebody. Get our listenership up. Get your dog a set of headphones and let them go. Come on. Why am I getting these looks?
Because you can't leave a review.
Dog, yeah, you can. You can leave a doggy paw review.
All right. Well, that's in next iPhone.
So with that, visit us at successfulbarrister.com and make sure to visit our sponsor, Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability law firm, at disabilitydenials.com. See ya.
Bye.